My name is Cedric, and we will be looking at the demo of a loan calculator um, so that we may learn how to apply and use the GUI from the user's perspective, right? Uh, so to use the GUI, we would be running the program here, and there are several things that we would note from the program. We would note our text location and then our entry locations, right? And then we would also see additional text here with a button here, right? But because there's nothing, then there's really just like an error, a value error, so there's nothing. But this button does have some functionality to the GUI itself. So the first thing to note out is that the text, the location of the text, right? So this is the first column, and we would have row 1, 2, 3, 4, and the following, right? And the rows with its corresponding text would be seen in this part of the code here. So as we would be able to see that annual percent interest rate would be seen from this first column and the first row. And then the second row, third row, that is seen here in the third row is the number of months. And what do we see here? Row 3, and the is correlates with the text of number of months, right? And then this W, stick equals W, means that we would be applying it in the west direction. So that's why it's the left-hand side here. And so moving on to the entries, we would be seeing here that this entry function here would be corresponding to would be um, taking entry from the user, and that entry from the user is being applied to this variable here, which will be then used to calculate, right? But this entry functionality is taking the entry from the user, but we would also be able to see how it's being gridded, which in this example for the annual interest rate, we'd be able to see that it's in column 2, second column, because it's this first column. So this column 2 with row 1, right? So that's how it's being applied. And this entry function is being applied to these other variables up to loan amount, which we'd be able to see here, which it does go up to loan amount this entry function, right? Which of course this last entry function would be at row 4, column 2, this is column 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, so this is the right position. And then for here, we would be having our label position, right? Because after we make our calculation, we want to position it, our monthly payment, at this position, the second column, row 5. We want it to be here where there's a blank space here, right? So we would be gridding it out at row 5, column 2, and of course we want us to stick to the east side. So we have the E here, right? But that would be that. And then we would also have to include um, our button, which we would have of the button function, which of course would be on the sixth row um, with on this onto the second column, right? So that's why it is here. And so this would be what we would be able to see from the user's perspective, right? And then moving on to the um, to this def compute payment, right? This is just going to be our step that would be taking to compute um, well, the payment, right? So we would be taking several self entries, such as the monthly payments and the number of months, number of years, interest rate, right? And we would know that the loan amount, the interest rate, uh, can be floating values, right? Because they won't be integers. They could be zero point 0.6, right? Or but they're going to be a decimal value. They could be, right? Um, but the only ones that will be integers, um, would be such as the years, right? So this would be applied as an integer here, and so that's what the um, this is how the compute payment function would be integrated into the general program. And then this is where we actually do the calculation, which is just a function that takes the loan amount, the monthly interest rate, and the number of years, right? And we would be using this formula here, this formula here, which would take the principal, the interest rate, and then the number of monthly mortgage payments, right? And this would be correlated to this general expression here, right? So a couple things to note here. Um, so we would be having the number of years here, right? But we want it in months, right? So we're going to multiply these, the value of number of years by 12 to get our to go from years to months, right? So that's one thing to note when counting for our expression here. And then another thing to account for our expression here was that I was getting a value that was way too big without this 12 times the number of years. Because it seems like it was initially getting the total amount. Um, yeah, it was getting the total amount with the cumulative interest, which is very odd. Not sure why that was happening. But to fix that, I just divided it by 12 times the number of years, right? So now it's going to be the per month, right, within the year for those number of years that we are taking a loan for, right? Because without this, it would be a huge number, and we would be able to see that here, why this would need to be taken into account in order to actually calculate for the monthly payment, right? So, uh, because again, this would be um, this would be needed because here in our program we're taking the annual interest rate, right? And we want to convert that into months. So um, this is more of a to reiterate, this is more of the reason why we would need to include this 12 uh, 12 the denominator of 12 times number of years, right? So that's how we would be getting the um, month, right? Our payment per month, right? Uh, but let's say we would have an interest rate of 5 per year, right? And then number of years is 20, and then we would have like 2 months and a loan of 100K, right? We would, this seems like a reasonable amount, right? $660 per month with the included interest for this number amount of time. I mean, yeah, that seems reasonable, right? And that seems like our program works.